"Stop her!" The shout echoed across the marble lobby just as two security guards grabbed Sofia Bellini by the arms. "I didn't take anything," Sofia cried, trying to pull free without hurting anyone. "Please, you've got the wrong person. The necklace disappeared after you cleaned the suite," the hotel manager snapped. "Security can sort it out." "You're finished here." Every guest in the lobby stopped to watch. Whispers spread like wildfire. "The maid stole from a VIP. I knew something was off about her. Disgusting." Sofia lowered her head. Humiliation hurt more than the guard's grip. She wasn't a thief. She was a 38-year-old single mother who had spent every day for the last 7 years cleaning rooms at one of Rome's most luxurious hotels. She was a very big, chubby woman who had heard every cruel joke imaginable about her size, yet she had never stolen so much as a coin. Her only thought was her 12-year-old son, Matteo. What would she tell him? How would she buy his school books? How would she pay the rent? The hotel doors suddenly burst open. A convoy of black SUVs screeched to a halt outside. Every conversation died instantly. Men in tailored black suits stepped inside first. Each wore an earpiece. Each scanned every corner, then he entered, over 6 feet tall, broad shoulders. Black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. His forearms were covered in intricate tattoos stretching all the way to his hands. As he removed his jacket, more ink covered his neck and disappeared beneath his collar. Even his fingers carried tiny symbols. The entire lobby froze. Everyone knew who he was. Lorenzo De Luca. One of the most feared mafia bosses in Italy. People said he owned businesses across Europe. People also whispered that nobody crossed him twice. The hotel manager's face turned pale. Mr. De Luca, welcome." Lorenzo didn't answer. His dark eyes stopped on Sofia. She was struggling to stay upright as the guards held her. He frowned, then he spoke. "What happened to her?" The manager forced a smile. "Nothing important, sir. One of our maids stole from a guest." Lorenzo looked at Sofia again, something about her face. Something about the way she looked at the floor instead of arguing. It stirred a memory he couldn't quite reach. Without another word, he walked past everyone toward the elevators. The entire lobby released a collective breath. Nobody noticed Lorenzo glance back one more time before the elevator doors closed. 3 days earlier. Sofia Bellini's alarm rang at 5 every morning. She switched it off before it woke Matteo. Their apartment was tiny. The wallpaper peeled from the corners. The refrigerator hummed louder than it cooled. Still, it was home. She smiled as she watched her son sleeping. "You deserve better," she whispered. She quietly prepared breakfast. Only 2 slices of bread remained. She toasted both. When Matteo walked into the kitchen, he frowned. "Mama, where's yours?" "I already ate." He looked at her. "You always say that," she laughed softly. "I wasn't very hungry." He knew she was lying. She had been lying for months. Whenever money became tight, Sofia skipped meals so Matteo wouldn't have to. He broke 1 slice in half and pushed it toward her. "We share." Sofia shook her head. "No, we share." She smiled through watery eyes. "Okay." After Matteo left for school, Sofia squeezed herself onto the crowded city bus. She could already feel the stares. A teenager whispered loudly to his friend. "If she gets on, nobody else can." Several passengers laughed. Sofia stared out the window. She had learned years ago that silence often hurt less than answering. The Grand Imperial Hotel stood in the heart of Rome. Crystal chandeliers, golden elevators, guests who spent more in one night than Sofia earned in 2 months. She changed into her uniform and headed straight to housekeeping. Before she even reached the storage room, a familiar voice stopped her. "There she is." Housekeeping supervisor Giulia Romano folded her arms. "I was wondering when you'd finally show up. It's still 15 minutes before my shift, and somehow you're already too slow." Several employees chuckled. Giulia looked Sofia up and down. "I honestly don't know how those buttons keep surviving." More laughter. Sofia forced herself to smile. "What rooms am I covering today?" "All of the West Wing." Sofia blinked. "That's almost double my usual section. You have a problem with work?" "No." "Good." As Sofia pushed her cleaning cart away, another maid caught up with her. Her name was Elena. Unlike the others, she never joined the bullying. "She's doing it again," Elena whispered. "You can't clean that many rooms by yourself." "I'll manage." "You always say that." "I always do," Elena sighed. "I wish you'd stand up to her." Sofia smiled gently. "If I lose this job, Matteo loses everything." The words stayed with Alina long after Sofia disappeared down the hallway. Hour after hour, Sofia scrubbed bathrooms, changed sheets, vacuumed carpets, polished mirrors, and carried bags of dirty linen that felt heavier with every trip. By lunchtime, sweat soaked through her uniform. She reached into her locker, only a bottle of water, nothing else. Alina noticed. "You didn't bring food again? I'm fine. You said that yesterday. I'm really not hungry." Alina opened her own lunchbox. "Take half." "No, I'm not asking." Sofia hesitated. "I'll owe you. You owe me nothing." Before Sofia could take a bite, Giulia stormed into the break room. "What is this?" Everyone fell silent. "I don't pay people to sit around." "It's lunch break," Alina said. Giulia ignored her. She pointed directly at Sofia. Room 812 complained the bathroom mirror still had fingerprints. "I cleaned that room twice. So you're admitting you missed something?" "I didn't." Giulia leaned closer. "You calling the guest a liar?" "No." "Then get back upstairs." Sofia quietly stood. She placed the untouched sandwich back into Alina's hands. "It's okay." "No, it isn't," Alina whispered. But Sofia was already walking away. As she entered room 812, she stared at the spotless mirror. There wasn't a single fingerprint on it. She understood immediately. There had never been a complaint. Giulia simply wanted to remind her who held the power. Sofia picked up the cloth anyway and wiped the perfectly clean glass once more. Then she looked at her reflection. For a brief moment, she barely recognized the exhausted woman staring back. She placed a hand over her heart and whispered to herself, "Just keep going, Sofia." She had no idea that in only a few days, the most feared man in Italy would walk into her life, and nothing would ever be the same. The following morning began even worse than the last. Sofia had barely tied her apron when Giulia slammed a clipboard onto the housekeeping desk. "Bellini, I'm here." "Good. Since you love taking your time, you're cleaning the presidential suite today." Every maid in the room looked up. "The presidential suite," one whispered. "Isn't that reserved?" Giulia smirked. "It is." Alina stepped forward. "That room usually takes 2 people." Giulia shot her a glare. "Then it's a good thing Sofia is larger than 2 people." The room erupted in laughter. Sofia felt her cheeks burn, but she refused to react. "I'll clean it." "Of course you will," Giulia said, "and don't leave a single speck of dust." "Our most important guest arrives tomorrow." Sofia picked up her cart. As she walked away, Alina caught up with her again. "You shouldn't let her talk to you like that." "What choice do I have? You could report her." "To who?" Alina had no answer. Everyone knew Giulia was close friends with the hotel manager. Complaints disappeared before they reached anyone important. Inside the presidential suite, Sofia worked carefully. Every surface gleamed. Every pillow sat perfectly. Every glass sparkled. She checked everything twice, then 3 times. She couldn't afford even the smallest mistake. As she finished, someone knocked gently. An elderly maintenance worker peeked inside. "Morning, Sofia." "Good morning, Carlo." Carlo had worked at the hotel longer than almost anyone. Unlike the others, he treated every employee with kindness. He smiled warmly. "I hear the famous guest arrives tomorrow, so everyone keeps saying." "They say his name is Lorenzo De Luca," Sofia shrugged. "I don't know anything about him." Carlo looked surprised. "You've never heard of him?" "No." "Then maybe that's a good thing." "What do you mean?" Carlo lowered his voice. "They say powerful people leave storms wherever they go." Sofia smiled politely. "I just clean rooms." "I know." Carlo looked at her with concern. "But storms don't always choose who they hit." That evening, Sofia returned home carrying discounted groceries. Matteo sat at the kitchen table surrounded by schoolbooks. "Mama," he ran over and hugged her tightly. "You're home late." "I had extra rooms today." He frowned as he looked at her tired face. "Did they make fun of you again?" Sofia hesitated. "A little." His expression changed immediately. "I hate them." "Don't." "Why not?" "Because hate grows too easily. They don't deserve your kindness." Sofia knelt beside him. "Maybe not." "Then why are you always kind?" She gently brushed his hair away from his forehead. "Because who I become is my choice. Who they become is theirs." Matteo looked down. "I wish I were older." "Why?" "So I could protect you." Tears filled Sofia's eyes. "You already do." "How?" "You give me a reason to keep going every single day." He hugged her again. "I promise I'll become someone important." "You already are." The next afternoon, the hotel buzzed with nervous energy. Luxury flowers filled the lobby. Fresh red carpets were rolled out. Extra security guards stood outside every entrance. Managers hurried from one floor to another. Giulia clapped loudly. "Everyone listen," the maids gathered. "Our guest arrives in 1 hour," she pointed directly at Sofia. "You stay out of sight." Sofia blinked. "What? I don't want any accidents. I clean this floor. You'll clean after he leaves. But did I ask for your opinion?" "No. Good." Sofia nodded quietly and pushed her cart toward the service hallway. Elena shook her head. "This is unbelievable." Giulia heard her. "Would you like to join her?" Elena immediately looked away. Outside, black SUVs rolled through the hotel gates. Guests stopped talking. Employees lined up nervously. The convoy finally stopped. One bodyguard stepped out first, then another. Each scanned the surroundings before opening the rear door. A polished black shoe touched the pavement. Then Lorenzo De Luca stepped out. His presence alone seemed to change the atmosphere. His black shirt fit tightly across his broad shoulders. Tattoos covered both arms from wrist to neck. Some looked decades old, others were newer. None were hidden. He walked with calm confidence. No unnecessary movements, no wasted words. Several wealthy guests quietly stepped aside without being asked. The hotel owner himself hurried forward. "Mr. De Luca, welcome to the Grand Imperial." Lorenzo offered a brief nod. "Thank you." His voice was calm, almost too calm. The owner smiled nervously. "We've prepared your usual suite." "My usual? You've stayed with us before." "I remember." His dark eyes slowly moved across the lobby. Employees lowered their heads. Nobody wanted to be noticed. Then he saw someone pushing a housekeeping cart across the far hallway, a very large, chubby maid trying to stay invisible. Sofia. For only a second their eyes met. She immediately looked away. "I'm sorry," she murmured softly as she moved aside to let him pass. Lorenzo stopped walking. His bodyguards stopped too. The owner almost crashed into them. "Sir," Lorenzo continued staring. Not at her uniform, not at her size, at her face. Something inside him stirred, not fear, not anger, recognition, but from where? His fingers unconsciously rubbed the faded scar on his wrist. He had gotten that scar 15 years earlier. He remembered blood, rain, sirens, a hospital corridor, an old woman smiling weakly, but the memory vanished before he could grasp it. Sofia noticed everyone waiting because of her. She quickly bowed her head. "I'm sorry for blocking the hallway." She hurried away before anyone could scold her. Lorenzo watched until she disappeared around the corner. One of his bodyguards leaned closer. "Boss, who is she?" "A maid. I can see that." "I'll find out more." Lorenzo nodded once. "Do it." That evening, Lorenzo sat alone in the presidential suite. Rome glittered beyond the windows. A crystal glass rested untouched beside him. His oldest advisor, Marco Rixai, entered quietly. "You wanted information. What did you find?" "Her name is Sofia Bellini." Lorenzo repeated the name slowly. "Sofia. Italian, 38 years old. Widowed. Her husband died 9 years ago in a construction accident." Lorenzo remained silent. Marco continued. "She has one son, Matteo. 12 years old. What else? Nothing unusual. There is something. What makes you say that?" "I've spent my life remembering faces." Marco nodded. "And I know hers. From where?" "I don't know." Marco looked puzzled. "I'll keep digging. I want everything. Everything, every previous job, school, yes, hospitals, especially hospitals." Marco frowned. "Hospitals?" Lorenzo stood and walked toward the window. "I keep seeing flashes." "What kind of flashes?" "A woman crying." He paused. "A silver cross." Marco's eyes narrowed. "You think you've met her before?" "I know I have." At the same time, Sofia sat beside Matteo on the worn-out couch in their apartment. He noticed she seemed distracted. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. You always say nothing when something is bothering you." She smiled. "There was an important guest today. The one everyone was talking about?" "Yes." "Were you scared?" She thought for a moment. "No." "What was he like?" She couldn't explain it. "He looked dangerous." Matteo's eyes widened. "Dangerous? But when he looked at me." "What happened?" Sofia frowned. "It felt like he knew me." "You've never met him?" "I don't think so." She stared out the window. For reasons she couldn't understand, the stranger's eyes had unsettled her all evening. Not because they were cold, but because for a brief moment they had seemed unexpectedly familiar. Neither of them knew that only a few streets away, Lorenzo De Luca had ordered a complete investigation into Sofia Bellini's life. And by sunrise, the first forgotten pieces of a 15-year-old mystery would begin to surface. Marco Rixai was waiting outside Lorenzo's office before sunrise. He carried a thick brown folder. "I've got something." Lorenzo looked up immediately. "Already? Not everything, but enough to make you ask more questions." He placed the folder on the desk. Lorenzo opened it without a word. Employment records, tax documents, hospital payrolls, old identification cards, then one page made him stop. "Hospice San Michel," Lorenzo read quietly. Marco nodded. "She worked there 15 years ago." Lorenzo's fingers tightened around the paper. "How long?" "Almost 3 years." The room fell silent. Marco watched his boss carefully. "You remembered a hospital." "I did. You think this is connected?" "I don't believe in coincidences." Marco leaned forward. "I've already sent someone to the hospice." "What are they looking for?" "Old staff records, patients, visitors, everything." Lorenzo closed the folder. "No shortcuts. There won't be." "And Marco?" "Yes, if this woman is who I think she is." Marco waited. "Then nobody hurts her again." Meanwhile, Sofia's day was getting worse. She had barely started cleaning the 10th floor when Giulia appeared with crossed arms. "I've been looking for you. I'm cleaning room 1017. Leave it." Sofia stepped back. "Why, VIP guest in room 1021 wants fresh flowers." "I can take them." Giulia smiled. "Oh, I wasn't sending you to deliver them." She turned toward another maid. "Chiara will do that." Then she looked back at Sofia. "You'll carry the old furniture into storage." Sofia stared. "By myself. Do you see anyone volunteering?" The storage room was in the basement. 3 heavy armchairs waited beside the service elevator. Even Carlo looked surprised. "Giulia assigned this to you?" "Yes." He shook his head. "These should be moved by maintenance." "I'll manage," Carlo sighed. "You always say that." She smiled weakly. "I know." She grabbed the first chair. It barely moved. She tried again. This time she managed to drag it a few inches. Her arms burned. Her back ached. Sweat rolled down her forehead. A pair of hotel guests passed by. One of them laughed. "They've got the biggest maid doing the heavy lifting." His wife chuckled. "I suppose she's built for it." Neither of them slowed down. Neither noticed the tears Sofia quickly wiped away. By noon, she was exhausted. She leaned against the wall for only a few seconds. Giulia's voice immediately echoed down the hallway. "There you are. I'm just catching my breath. Then breathe while working. I finished 14 rooms, and I'm still moving the furniture. So move faster. My back hurts." Giulia folded her arms. "Maybe skipping dessert would help." Several nearby employees laughed again. Elena finally spoke. "Enough." Everyone turned. Giulia smiled coldly. "Excuse me, I said enough. You want to defend her. She's working harder than anyone here." Giulia walked closer. "You think you're the supervisor now?" "No. Then mind your own business." "It is my business when someone is being bullied." The hallway became completely silent. Giulia's smile disappeared. "You know what?" She looked back at Sofia. "Because of your little friend," she pointed toward another cleaning cart. "You're covering her floor too." Elena gasped. "What? You heard me." "That's impossible." Giulia shrugged. "Then perhaps one of you should resign." Sofia immediately stepped forward. "No." Elena looked at her. "Sofia, I'll do it." "You can't." "I'll manage." Elena shook her head in frustration. "They're going to work you until you collapse." Sofia simply picked up another stack of towels. Across the city, Marco's investigators entered Hospice San Michel. The building had changed little over the years. An elderly nun greeted them. "Can I help you?" Marco smiled politely. "We're looking for information about a former employee. I'm afraid we don't give out personal records." "I understand." He placed his business card on the desk. "This concerns someone who wishes to repay an old kindness." The nun studied him for a moment. "What was her name?" "Sofia Bellini." The nun's expression softened instantly. "Sofia, you remember her. How could I forget?" Marco noticed the warmth in her voice. "What kind of person was she?" The nun smiled. "The kind who stayed after everyone else went home." Marco remained silent. "She used to sing to patients who couldn't sleep." She laughed softly. "She wasn't a very good singer." Both of them smiled. "But the patients loved it." Marco asked quietly, "Do you remember anyone named Maria?" The smile slowly faded. "Maria Morty?" Marco's heartbeat quickened. "Yes." The nun looked at him carefully. Why are you asking about her? What do you remember? Maria was very ill, she paused. She hardly had visitors, Marco frowned. None, only one. Sofia, the nun nodded, every single day. Back at the hotel, Lorenzo stood alone in the restaurant overlooking the city. His bodyguards kept their distance. He watched guests enjoying expensive meals. Then he noticed Sofia through the glass wall. She was carrying a stack of fresh towels nearly as tall as she was. One towel slipped. She bent down to pick it up. A businessman walking past deliberately bumped into her shoulder. The entire stack crashed onto the floor. The man didn't even stop. "Watch where you're going," he snapped. "I'm sorry," Sofia said immediately. "You should be." He walked away. Lorenzo watched everything. One of the waiters whispered, "It wasn't her fault." Another answered quietly, "Doesn't matter." Sofia knelt on the floor collecting towels one by one. Nobody helped. Lorenzo took one step forward. Marco's call interrupted him. "I've found something." Lorenzo answered immediately. "Talk." "Maria Morty." Silence. The hospice confirmed Sofia cared for her. Lorenzo's breathing slowed. "What else?" "They were extremely close." "How close?" "The staff said Sofia stayed long after her shifts ended." Lorenzo closed his eyes. His mother's face flashed through his mind, weak, smiling. Holding someone's hand, he still couldn't see whose. "Keep digging." "I already am. There has to be more." "There is." "What?" "The nun said Maria trusted almost nobody." Lorenzo waited. But she trusted Sofia completely. That evening, Sofia finally reached home. Her feet ached so badly she removed her shoes outside the apartment door. Matteo noticed her limp immediately. "Mama, I'm okay." "No, you're not." He gently helped her sit down. "What happened?" "Long day." He looked at her swollen hands. "They made you carry heavy things again." She tried to hide them. "It's part of the job." "No." She looked at him. "No, it's not. They're taking advantage of you." Sofia smiled sadly. "You're becoming too smart." "I'm becoming angry." He disappeared into the kitchen. A minute later, he returned with warm water and a towel. She blinked. "What's this? Give me your feet." "You don't have to." "I know." He knelt anyway. Carefully, he placed her tired feet into the warm water. Sofia's eyes filled instantly. "Matteo, you always take care of me." He looked up and smiled. "Tonight I take care of you." She couldn't stop the tears. "I'm sorry. What for?" "I wish I could give you a better life." He shook his head firmly. "I don't want another mother." She laughed through her tears. "I only want you." She pulled him into a hug. Outside, rain began falling softly against the windows. Across the city, Lorenzo sat alone in his office, staring at an old photograph of his late mother. For the first time in 15 years, he felt that the answers he had searched for were finally within reach. He just didn't know that someone else had already decided Sofia Bellini would never finish the week as an employee of the Grand Imperial Hotel. The following morning, Giulia walked into the housekeeping office with an expression that immediately made everyone uneasy. She clapped once. "Listen up." Every maid stopped what she was doing. "The owner himself will inspect the presidential floor this afternoon." Nobody spoke. Giulia slowly smiled. "And if anything goes wrong," her eyes settled on Sofia. "Someone is going to lose her job," Elena whispered. "She's setting you up." "I know," Sofia replied quietly. "Then don't let her." "I'll do my best." Giulia tossed a keycard across the table. "Suite 1501, Sofia caught it. "The presidential suite again?" "Yes, I cleaned it yesterday." "Clean it again." "There isn't anything left to clean." Giulia stepped closer. "Did I ask for your opinion?" "No." "Then get moving." For nearly 2 hours, Sofia polished every surface until it reflected like glass. She checked the bedroom, the sitting room, the private office, the marble bathroom. Everything was perfect. She stood in the doorway and quietly nodded to herself. "Done." As she reached for her cart, Giulia appeared. "Finished already?" "Yes." Giulia walked through the suite, pretending to inspect it. Then, without Sofia noticing, she slipped a diamond bracelet from her own pocket and pushed it beneath the edge of a sofa cushion. She turned around. "You missed a spot." Sofia looked confused. "Where?" Giulia pointed toward the coffee table. Sofia walked over and wiped it again. "Better." As Sofia left with her cart, Giulia glanced back at the hidden bracelet and smiled to herself. "This time," she whispered, "you're finished." Downstairs, Lorenzo sat in a private meeting with the hotel owner. The owner forced another nervous smile. "We're honored you continue choosing our hotel." Lorenzo remained expressionless. I value good service. We always provide the best. Do you? The owner blinked. Of course, Lorenzo folded his hands. I've noticed something. What is that? Your employees seem afraid. The owner's smile faded slightly. Our standards are high. There's a difference between discipline and fear. The owner laughed awkwardly. I'm sure you've misunderstood. Lorenzo said nothing. His silence made the room far more uncomfortable than anger would have. Marco entered quietly. Boss, Lorenzo looked at him. You found something. I believe so, the owner stood. I'll leave you too. As soon as the door closed, Marco placed an old photograph on the table. Lorenzo picked it up. The image was faded. Several hospice workers stood beside elderly patients during a Christmas celebration. Near the back, a younger Sofia Bellini, smiling, holding the hand of an elderly woman sitting in a wheelchair. Maria Morty, Lorenzo froze, his thumb slowly brushed across the photograph. Marco watched him carefully. Do you recognize her now? His voice almost disappeared. I remember my mother's smile. Marco nodded. The nun remembered something else. What? Maria refused treatment from almost everyone, but not Sofia. No, Marco continued, she only trusted Sofia to feed her. Lorenzo lowered his eyes. My mother never trusted strangers. Exactly. So why did she trust Sofia? Marco hesitated. Because Sofia never treated her like the mother of a mafia boss. Lorenzo looked up. She treated her like a lonely old woman. The room became silent. For years, Lorenzo had believed his mother's final months had been filled with loneliness. Now, that belief was beginning to crumble. Meanwhile, Sofia was helping an elderly guest into a wheelchair outside the hotel restaurant. The gentleman smiled warmly. Thank you, it was nothing. No, he gently touched her hand. Kindness is never nothing. Before Sofia could answer, Giulia stormed across the lobby. There you are, I'm helping this guest. I don't care, the elderly man frowned. Young lady, she's assisting me. Giulia forced a fake smile. I'm terribly sorry, sir. Then she grabbed Sofia's arm. Now, the elderly guest looked shocked. There's no reason to pull her like that. Giulia ignored him completely. She dragged Sofia into the hallway. What are you doing? I was helping him. I didn't assign you to help guests. I thought that's why we're here. Giulia's face hardened. Don't get clever with me. I'm not. You've been making me look bad. Sofia stared in disbelief. I've done nothing. You've made people feel sorry for you. I never asked anyone to. Exactly. Giulia stepped even closer. I've worked too hard to become supervisor. I know. I'm not letting some oversized maid steal everyone's sympathy. Sofia's eyes widened. I've never wanted your position. I don't believe you. You don't have to. Giulia pointed toward the elevators. Go clean the 15th floor again. I already finished. Then clean it better. That afternoon, the presidential suite was officially inspected. The hotel manager walked through each room with 2 assistant managers. Giulia followed behind them with folded arms. Everything appeared perfect, until one assistant lifted a sofa cushion. He frowned. What's this? The diamond bracelet sparkled in the light. The manager's face changed instantly. Where did that come from? Giulia slowly turned toward Sofia. I knew something wasn't right. Sofia looked completely confused. I've never seen that before. The manager picked up the bracelet. This belongs to one of our VIP guests. It wasn't there when I cleaned. Giulia laughed softly. Convenient, I swear. You were the last employee inside this suite. I didn't take it. Then how did it get here? I don't know. The manager's voice grew louder. Search her cart. Sofia's heart pounded. One employee searched every shelf. Another checked every bag. Nothing. Giulia crossed her arms. She must have hidden the rest somewhere else. There is no rest, Sofia pleaded. I've stolen nothing. The manager looked disappointed rather than relieved. The bracelet alone is enough. No, I'm suspending you immediately. Sofia felt her knees weaken. Please, you can explain yourself after security reviews everything. I need this job. That should have mattered before you stole. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I didn't. No one answered. Several employees looked away. Others whispered among themselves. Elena stepped forward. This is wrong. The manager glared at her. Are you accusing management of lying? I'm saying Sofia would never steal. Based on what? Because I know her. Giulia scoffed. You know her. Elena nodded firmly. Yes, I've worked beside her for years. And I've watched her return money guests accidentally dropped. I've watched her hand expensive jewelry to lost and found. I've watched her skip lunch. Because she couldn't afford food, she looked directly at the manager. A woman who sacrifices meals for her son isn't risking everything for a bracelet. The hallway fell silent. For a brief second, doubt appeared on the manager's face. Then Giulia spoke again. Good people steal too. The moment passed. The manager sighed. Security will handle it. Two guards approached Sofia. She looked around desperately. No one moved, no one except Alina. I'm coming with her. One guard blocked her path. Employees, stay here. Sofia looked back at her friend. Thank you. Alina's eyes filled with tears. I'm going to prove they're lying. Sofia managed a faint smile despite everything. I know you will. Neither woman noticed that high above them, one of the hallway security cameras had captured every second inside the presidential suite, including the moment Giulia secretly slipped the bracelet beneath the sofa cushion. And at that exact moment, Marco was hurrying toward Lorenzo's office with another discovery that would finally unlock the memory Lorenzo had been chasing for 15 long years. Sofia sat in a small holding room behind the hotel offices, her hands trembling as she stared at the blank wall. The security guard outside avoided her eyes. She had stopped crying now. Not because it hurt less, because there was nothing left to give. I didn't take it, she whispered to herself again, like repeating it enough times might make someone believe her. Footsteps approached, the door opened. Alina appeared first, breathless. Sofia, I know, Sofia said quietly. It's over. No, it's not. Behind her, Marco Rixai entered with urgency, holding a phone in his hand. And behind him, Lorenzo De Luca. The entire room changed the moment he stepped inside. The guard straightened immediately. Even Alina instinctively stepped back. Lorenzo looked directly at Sofia, not like a suspect, not like an employee. Like someone trying to remember a dream he had almost lost forever. I saw the footage, Marco said quickly. He turned the phone toward the manager and Giulia, who had just arrived outside the room. The video played, clear, unedited, Giulia walking into the presidential suite, Giulia slipping the bracelet under the sofa, Giulia walking out calmly. Silence hit like a collapse. The manager's face went pale. That's not possible. It is, Marco said sharply, and it's already been verified by the system logs. Giulia's lips parted. No, I didn't. Lorenzo didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed on Sofia. You stood there, he said quietly. Sofia blinked. What, when they accused you? He continued, voice controlled but heavy. You kept saying you didn't do it. Her voice cracked. Because I didn't. I know. That simple response broke something in her. Alina covered her mouth. Giulia stepped back. This is a setup, she tried weakly. She could have done it earlier. Enough, Lorenzo said, not loud but final. The room went completely silent. He turned slightly toward Marco. Call the board, call the owner. Everyone? Yes, boss. Then Lorenzo finally stepped closer to Sofia. Up close, the tattoos on his arms were impossible to ignore, old ink, scars beneath them, a life built in violence and survival. But his voice when he spoke was different, lower, almost careful. My mother died in Hospice San Michel. Sofia froze. The room felt like it stopped breathing. Lorenzo continued. She used to tell me she was alone. His jaw tightened. But she was. His eyes softened for the first time. She told me there was a woman who stayed with her when everyone else left. Sofia's breath shook. I stayed with many patients, she said faintly. I know. He took another step closer. Her name was Maria Morti. At the mention, Sofia's eyes filled instantly. She was kind, Sofia whispered. She was scared, but she never showed it. Lorenzo nodded slowly. I found your name in her records. Sofia shook her head slightly, overwhelmed. I didn't do anything special. That's where you're wrong, he said. The room was silent, except for Sofia's uneven breathing. Lorenz looked at her like he was seeing something beyond the present moment. For 15 years, he said, I thought my mother died alone. His voice tightened. But she didn't, he paused. She died holding your hand. Sofia's tears finally broke. I didn't want her to be alone, she whispered. No one should be alone like that. Lorenzo looked away for a second, jaw clenched as something emotional passed through him. When he looked back, his decision was already made. He turned toward the manager. This hotel is mine now. The manager blinked. Excuse me. I bought it yesterday, Lorenzo said flatly. The words landed like thunder. Giulia's face drained of color. No, you can't just— I can, he interrupted. His eyes moved to her. And I just did. Silence, absolute silence. Lorenzo pointed at the screen still showing the footage. This woman fabricated evidence and destroyed an innocent employee's life. He looked at Marco. Fire her, permanently. Press charges. Giulia finally broke. You're choosing her over me? Lorenzo's expression didn't change. I'm choosing truth over cruelty. Security immediately stepped forward. Giulia backed away. This is insane. She's nothing. She's just a maid. Lorenzo turned his head slightly. And you are nothing to me. She was removed from the room screaming. The sound faded quickly. Then there was only silence again. Sofia stood there shaking, unable to fully process what was happening. Alina grabbed her hand. You're okay, she whispered. You're actually okay. Sofia let out a broken laugh through tears. I don't know what that means anymore. Lorenzo looked at her again. Come with me, she hesitated. Where? To the boardroom. I'm still suspended. You were never the problem, he said simply. That stopped her. For the first time, she looked up directly at him, not afraid, just confused. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Lorenzo paused, then answered honestly. Because my mother spent her final days believing the world had forgotten her. He stepped closer. And you proved her wrong. A long silence followed. Then Sofia whispered something barely audible. I'm just a mother trying to raise my son. Something changed in his expression at that. Where is he? At school. Lorenzo nodded once. Then after this, I want to meet him. Sofia looked unsure. He's not used to people like you. Neither was I, Lorenzo said. That almost made her smile through the tears. 2 hours later, the entire hotel staff stood frozen in the main hall. The owner formally stepped down. Lorenzo confirmed new management structure. But when he spoke again, his voice shifted. This hotel will no longer run on fear. He looked across the room. Anyone who humiliates, abuses, or degrades staff again will not work here. His gaze briefly landed on where Giulia had once stood, then softened slightly when he looked at Sofia. And anyone who shows the kind of humanity this woman has shown, he paused, will be protected. Sofia stood beside Alina, still overwhelmed. Alina whispered, You changed everything. Sofia shook her head slightly. No, I just cleaned rooms. Alina smiled through tears. You did more than that. That evening, Sofia stepped outside the hotel for the first time since everything collapsed. Matteo was waiting with a worried expression. Mama, she dropped to her knees and pulled him into her arms. He immediately noticed. You're crying. I'm okay, she whispered. No, you're not, he said softly. She laughed weakly. This time, I think I am. Behind them, Lorenzo stood at a distance, watching quietly, not intruding, just observing. Sofia noticed him and gently motioned him closer. He approached slowly. Matteo looked up. You're the man from the hotel? Lorenzo nodded. Yes, Matteo studied him. You look scary. A pause, then Lorenzo replied honestly. I've been worse. That made Matteo blink. Sofia almost laughed. Lorenzo looked at the boy. I'd like to get to know you, he said. Matteo glanced at his mother first. She nodded slowly. Matteo nodded back. Okay. A long silence followed. Not awkward, just new. Sofia looked at both of them. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about survival. She was thinking about tomorrow, and it didn't feel impossible anymore.